I'll just put this. I think it's behind you. It's maybe your voice.
Okay.
Okay. So I will introduce you with words before, so
Okay.
you don't have to repeat
Okay.
things 100 times. But yeah, I want to go back to what you were talking about before,
Okay.
because it's for Chinese audience.
Okay.
And I do want to ask your connection with China or
Okay.
Tibet, which is
Perfect.
your
And
passion
do I
for
look
a
at
long
you or
time.
do I look at the screen?
Oh, up to you.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever is natural.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what you have been living in Tibetan monastery in Toscana for a long time, and
Yeah.
then after that you went to China, trying to get into Tibet.
Yes.
But didn't. But then you did travel a lot in China in 1990.
Yes.
So that was your only connection or experience with China so far?
So yeah, when I was 19, I left the UK because
Oh.
I was like, I've had enough of this place. I want to live somewhere else. And
That
so
was when you were 19. That was 88 or something.
something like
87.
that, yeah, 88, something like that.
Before I was born.
Yeah, so then I went to live in this Buddhist monastery for 2.5 years in Tuscany, which was an amazing experience with all these incredible Tibetan teachers who were there, most of whom aren't alive anymore, but who were that generation in 1959 who left and walked out of the mountains and into India and carried that whole wisdom tradition with them over the mountains.
Okay.
And so I lived there for 2.5 years, and then from there, I went to India for about 6 months and went to Dharamsala, and I went to Bodh Gaya as well, where the Buddha got enlightened underneath the tree. And then, but my dream was that I wanted to go to Mount Kailash,
Me
which
too.
is in the southwest Tibet, near the Nepali border, which for Hindus and Buddhists is the most sacred mountain.
For me too.
Centre of the universe.
Yeah.
And I really, really wanted to go there. And
Have you been so far?
No, I still haven't been. No. And you're supposed to walk around it in a clockwise direction.
In the year of horse.
Yes, yes, and so
which will be next year.
Which will be next year.
We can go together.
Maybe that'd be nice. So that was the idea, and I met some friends in Dharamsala who had come back, who had done that, and at that time, before surveillance states and all of that stuff, people who sort of sneaked in, hiding in trucks and got in, and there were ways people had got around within Tibet at that point, just hiding in trucks and all
there
this
was
sort of
no like camera
disguise.
stuff
No
at that
camera,
time.
none of that, no. And I spoke to all of them, and I got the route, which was that you came up through Pakistan, so we travelled through Pakistan.
That must be pretty hard, isn't it?
It was,
Like mountain.
I was like in my early 20s, I was a bit more, I don't know if I could do it now. We travelled up and went to the Hunza Valley in Pakistan, one of the most beautiful places I ever went in my life. Travelled up round the back of K2 so you could see the mountains, into Kashgar, which was amazing, Uyghur Muslim place there, and then from there to a place called Golmut, which was like a big kind of truck stop.
Okay.
Really not very nice place, but that was the place where you could find truck drivers and say, I'll give you some money if you hide me in your truck. And we got
what an adventure.
It was an adventure, and we got about 10 miles north of Lhasa, and then we got arrested.
Oh.
The thing is, if you can get through Lhasa to the other side, then you could pretend that you were coming from the other direction, and then they might send you back.
Yeah.
That was the idea. Yeah. But they were like, no. So they took our passports and sent us back. So then we then travelled down through China, and there were still 2 places there in Xining, which was historically, before the 1950s, was part of historic Tibet. Yep. So there's still 2 big monasteries there, Kumbum, where Lama Tsongkhapa was born, and Labrang Tashikil, which largely survived the Cultural Revolution, I think. So they're very much intact, beautiful, amazing places. Wow. And then travelled down through China. But that was when it was very much like, some of the things I remember from China in those days was that when you went into shops, firstly, there was nothing in them to buy. Yeah. But also everybody, the women who did the like on the till, the cashiers, used abacuses.
Yes.
And used them like incredibly
we
quickly.
Them too when we were small.
Yeah, it's amazing. People could go do like really complex
it's like
maths
a few
on an abacus.
1,000-year-old invention.
Yeah, it's amazing. and the number of bicycles, and the people doing Tai Chi in the parks in the mornings, and that actually very often it was like the women who kind of ran Like when everyone was queuing up for trains and the male guards would say, form an orderly queue, and everyone would be like, yeah, whatever. The women would go, ah! Everyone would get into line like this, you know. And,
that was the women in the north.
Yeah.
Yeah, women in the south where I'm from, not so much.
Yeah, the women in the north. So that was an amazing experience. We were there for about 2.5 months, I think.
Okay.
And ended up in Canton. And
That's my city.
Okay, I remember going to the meat market in Canton.
Yes.
Which I think was a traumatic experience. I still haven't quite recovered from people eating snakes and kittens. And,
I know.
I mean, it was like, as a vegetarian, I was like,
oh you were already vegetarian?
I was already, if I wasn't before, I would certainly have been after that experience. It was quite a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that.
But it was an amazing experience. Although I imagine, now I think China is completely different to what that was. Yeah.
So what was your connection with the Tibetan Buddhism? Why, as a British young lad, at the age of 19, you'd be so interested in that?
So I lived in Bristol before then,
and
I shared a flat in Bristol with 2 guys my age as well. And one of them was interested in Tibetan Buddhism. I wasn't really at all. I didn't really have any interest in that. And he was very into it, and he would go up to visit a Buddhist monastery in the northwest of England sometimes, and would talk about it. I wasn't really interested. But then the 3 of us had one summer. We had this challenge because we were all a bit lost and we didn't really know what we were doing, and we didn't like England very much. And so we all bought what are called interrail cards, which
I was on that this summer.
So we had interrail cards, and we were like, okay, who can find a way to stay out of England? So I ended up going to France and picking grapes, and then I couldn't find any more work, and I had to come home. And the 2 of us came home like, but then this other guy, Dan, my friend, he went to Tuscany to Lama Tsongkhapa Institute there, which is one of the biggest Tibetan Buddhist Gelugpa tradition centres in the UK, in Europe actually. And he said, "Oh, you must come out, come and say hello, come and stay for a bit." I was like, "Well, all right, okay." And so when I arrived there, it was like, "This is a beautiful place, really beautiful. Tuscany is just gorgeous." And he said, and the way it worked at that time in the place was, if you work here, then that covers your board and your lodging.
Like woofing.
Like woofing. Yeah. I was like, I could do that. So it was my way of staying out. And it was great. They said, I said, "Well, what do you want me to do?" And it was a big place. It was like, if it was a hotel, it was would have been like 140 bed hotel.
Wow.
And lots of people came there for courses and different things. So they said, "This is Alessandro, he's the house manager, work with him." So he taught me how to do all the laundry and how to do all the cleaning and the rotas for the different things. And then after 3 weeks he said, "I'm off now, I'm going to go to Elba to work the summer season." I said, "Oh, so who takes over after you?" "You do, here are the keys." So I arrived there, 3 weeks later, I'm the house manager. Oh, and there's a yoga class, 100 people coming in for a yoga course on Thursday. Oh, wow. Okay. So then I went from just being this slightly lost sort of teenager to being somebody who people depended on, and it was one of the best thing ever happened to me. Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah. It was like my life university, really. And then the more time I spent.
So you didn't go to university?
I didn't go to university till I was 24.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, you had your PhD afterwards.
So I did so when most people would go to university, I went to live in a Buddhist monastery, which was kind of like university really. Yeah. And then I travelled in India and China and Tibet, did all that, came back to Bristol, had a couple of years working, and I met my wife in Dharamsala, and we came back together. And then when we started having children, that was when I went to university. So I didn't go to university till I was 24.
Oh wow, quite a special life journey.
Yeah, it was much more fun, I think, because it meant that actually when I went to university, I was really hungry for it. Yeah, because I had
something to study.
Yeah, and I had 2 years of doing crap jobs and not having much money, and I had a reason to do it. So.
Yeah, I see. Yeah. And so what was the thing that inspired you to do the transition network and movement? What was the personal story or
So when I was in the Hunza Valley, so I travelled up through Pakistan with an Australian guy called Chris, who lived in a place in Queensland called Crystal Waters Permaculture Village, which was the first intentionally designed permaculture village in the world at that time.
Wow, really?
And it was the first time I'd heard the word permaculture. He talked about it all the time. When we got to the Hunza Valley, he was like, "Oh my God, this is an amazing permaculture." I was like, "What do you mean?" So when I got back to England, someone gave me a copy of Bill Mollison's big permaculture book, The Designer's Manual. And when I opened it, it had a chapter on earth repair, like how to put everything back together again, which kind of blew my mind that somebody had written a book and not just about how fucked everything was, but actually a book on how to put it back together again. So then I became voraciously hungry for everything I could find about permaculture. I did my permaculture course just before I started doing my degree, thank goodness, because I think if I'd have done an environmental degree without studying permaculture first, it would have been pretty bleak, you know. But with the permaculture, I was like, but actually, you could do something about that. You could do this, you could do that, whatever. So then, when I finished doing my degree, we moved to Ireland, and we lived in Ireland for 10 years in the southwest, and basically spent 10 years putting it all into practice. So I started teaching permaculture initially as an evening class, and then I set up in a college in the southwest of Ireland.
Where was that? Which year?
So we moved there in 1996.
Okay.
And then we moved back to the UK in 2025. So we're there for 9 years altogether.
Wow. And so that was between your 30s and 40s?
Yeah, something like that. So 2 of my kids were born in Bristol before we went, and the other 2 were born in Ireland. So the ones born in Ireland, because they were born in Ireland, they have European passports, which is very, very helpful
now
in post-Brexit stupid Britain. So so then in Ireland I set up in this college there, the first 2-year full-time permaculture course in the world, I think, there.
Wow.
So I was a permaculture teacher there for about 6 years. We started one of the very first sort of eco-village projects in Ireland, which still exists, which is called the Hollies Centre for Practical Sustainability. We did lots of training on natural building, so building with cob and straw bale and hemp and lime, and built our own houses, and that place still exists as an amazing training centre. And if you want to see the possibilities of what you can build with cob construction, that's a really amazing place to go.
I always dream of building a cob for myself too.
Well, you should definitely go there then. It'll blow your mind. It's amazing what they've built there. And all the natural paints and the clay plasters and all that stuff. So then when we moved to Totnes in 2005,
that was 20 years ago.
Very nearly, yeah, very, very nearly. No, it is, yeah. So it is exactly 20 years ago that we moved.
Wow.
God, time goes fast.
It's kind of hard for people to grasp, because you are almost 60, right? And then you look like 40. And somehow, in my mind, when you taught us, you look exactly the same as now, which is for me like in your 30s or 40s.
Well, that's very nice. I'll come here again. Thank you very much. So when I arrived here, we had this project that I'd done with my students in Kinsale. That was called the Kinsale Energy Descent Action Plan. That was a student project where I asked the students I put them into pairs, gave them different subjects. So some had transport, some had energy, some had local economy, whatever. And I asked them to plan a 20-year way that Kinsale could break its dependency on oil and gas. So at the end, it ended up using none of those things, but was in a better place. And at the end, when I was marking them, I had all these different assignments, and I thought, this is just brilliant. And at that time, there was nothing like that. Nobody in the kind of climate movement was doing anything like that. So, and I had a little bit of budget left as a teacher. So I edited this thing together and wrote an introduction and laid it out and made it look nice. And then I used my last bit of budget to print 500 copies of this thing. And we did a big event there at the college just before we moved back here. And then we put it online. And something about this, it just got downloaded thousands and thousands and thousands of times. People left comments going, this is the thing that we've been waiting for, this idea that we aren't helpless in this, and that we could design a transition where at the end we're in a better place than where we started from. And so when I moved here to Totnes, I didn't really know anybody. I had this document.
Did you have a connection with Schumacher?
I had not really, a little bit. But I read Resurgence magazine, so I knew about it. And then we just started this process that was initially just me. I designed an evening class that was based on the course I used to teach in Kinsale, called Skilling Up for Power Down, that I was at 10 weeks. I ran it a few times in Totnes. And then I started to meet people through that who were sort of thinking along similar lines. And then I met a guy called Naresh, and together with him we started showing films about climate change and all this sort of stuff. And then a year later we did an event that was called the Official Unleashing of Transition Town Totnes, and that was when it started, and then it just took off from that moment, really.
So you just officially, you announced that this is the Transition Town movement starting. It's not like any official government thing that says this is now a transition town. Okay.
It was like it was quite audacious.
Okay.
It was like us just going, Totnes is now a transition town. What the hell is a transition town? I don't know, we're going to make it up together. Let's see. We didn't get anyone's permission. Well, we did a lot of networking before that. So the town council were very enthusiastic. Lots of the different local organisations in the town were very enthusiastic. So it acted as a sort of like a bit of a kind of unifying call for all of those things that had previously been feeling all a bit disparate from each other, really.
I see.
Yeah.
So how long did it take from the first initiative to the time you announced this officially?
So I arrived in September 2005. The official unleashing was in September 2006. So we spent about a year doing like laying of foundations, networking, building interest. And then when we launched it in September 2006, then we had a program for the next 3 months where we would do an event on food and why food was so important. And then we did a big community open space on food. And the idea was that that would then stimulate the creation of a group, a working group within transitional food. Then we did one on energy, then we did one on transport. So after about 3 months, we had, I think, 6 or 7 different working groups looking at different things, people getting involved in different projects. And some of those things delivered very, very quickly. So like we had like a town, like incredible edible type projects started very quickly. Some of them have taken a long time. So one of the first groups was a housing group. That housing group said we need to create a sort of community-led housing project. That is now 20 years later just starting to be built.
Oh wow.
So some of these things are very quick. Some of them require some very tenacious, determined, stubborn, principled people.
And how the people are doing it by, like, if they're all volunteers, or do they get paid, or how does
So
it
at
work?
the beginning there were 4 or 5 of us who decided that we would give our time as volunteers to getting to laying all the foundations for this. So to do all the boring stuff. So we started the bank account, we created the website, we set up the mailing list. There was somebody in town who gave us a donation of £5,000, which we used to pay somebody who was really good at fundraising, who then raised £90,000.
Wow, that's a lot.
And that meant then that we were able to have somebody who was like an administrator who held, and we had an office space. So we had a place, a physical place. Most of the events ran and raised a little bit of money that went back into it. And then as it built, we then started applying for funds for different things.
I see.
So it's kind of ebbed and flowed, and it still exists. I was only involved for about the first 5 years because I was very conscious about like founder syndrome and founders who stay around too long. And then, but then also because already, so we started Transition Town Totnes September, October 2006. And by early 2007, we had so much interest from people all around the world going, what is this transition town thing? What are you doing? How do you do it? And we were really making it up as we went along. And I had a blog at the time
Making
called...
up? What do you mean?
We were sort of making it up. Like, it wasn't like we were taking a book about how to do it. It was like we were learning as we went along. We were developing the model from experience rather than saying, this is the model, we will do this. It was like, no, what are we actually doing? What's actually working? How does this work? You know?
So you're very transparent about, you're also kind of finding your way.
Yeah, totally, yeah. So we had at the time we used to say, if we try and do this on our own, it'll be too little. If we wait for governments, it'll be too late. But if we get together with the people around us, maybe it might just be enough, and maybe it might just be in time. That was kind of the philosophy. But already then, by early 2007, we had so much interest. We had a wiki page where we were sort of sharing ideas, what is this thing, and people who were practicing it in other places would add their ideas. I had a blog where I would write ideas and put them out and get feedback. But by April 2007, we had so much interest from other places. I remember there was a really formative moment when YouTube was quite a new thing then. This is probably, you can't imagine a world of history life before YouTube was probably quite difficult, but actually there was a time before YouTube, and in early 2007 it was a really new thing then.
Yeah.
And I remember somebody said, look, I found this video on YouTube, this was in about March 2007, of a woman in New Zealand. None of us had been to New Zealand, none of us had spoken to anyone in New Zealand. A woman in New Zealand giving a presentation in the hall in her village to her community about why they should become a transition town. It's like, this is really amazing, this is really interesting. Like, who is she? Like, how does she even know it? And she had just got bits from reading the wiki and reading my blog and had pieced this together. And so in 2007 we started an organisation called Transition Network, which was just designed to take, because at the moment, at that time, we were trying to get Transition Town Totnes going, and we were having to cope with people writing to us from like New Zealand and Brazil and America and saying, how can we do this too? You know. So then we started a separate organisation called Transition Network, which was to support it beyond Totnes. And so for the first 5 or 6 years, Transition Network and Transition Town Totnes shared an office, and there was a lot of crossover between the two things.
Have you ever got anyone from China asking how to do it?
Yeah, I think there have been people from China, I can't remember very much about it. But I've had quite a few invitations to go to China, but I don't fly. So the idea was always, my dream was always to go on the Trans-Siberian train from Paris to Moscow to Beijing, but it doesn't run anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because
of the war.
Because of the war, and also because of COVID. I think China closed that border during COVID and it didn't reopen. But also because that train line was used to rearm the Russian army in Ukraine. So I think Ukraine blew up that train line. So it's more complicated now to get to China overland.
You can hitchhike or drive.
I mean, a friend of mine did it recently, where they went through Turkey, Georgia, got a 3-day transit visa through Russia into Kazakhstan and then into northern China that way.
Now you can go to China without a visa, so it's quite convenient.
Okay.
Yeah, 10 days.
Okay.
Visa free.
Oh, right, okay. Oh, yes. I wish I could have gone to Tibet if I'd have known that then.
Tibet is still...
Tibet's still very difficult, more
other
difficult.
parts of China,
but it was, but yeah, there have been people, because we used to, for a few years, we did these big like international conferences, and there were definitely people who came to some of those from China.
Nice. I need to check who's doing this, because I'm the first student from China who studied in Schumacher.
Okay.
Like a master degree.
Oh, really?
And then everyone that came after me from China are all coming from my share. So I think I know everyone who's vaguely connected to Schumacher or Totnes in any way, but I never found anyone. I know someone who's trying to do eco-village, but not exactly like transition.
Okay. I mean, the thing with transition is it was always an attempt at, like, when we started it, you had permaculture, which tended to be people who had that sort of, I'm going to move to the countryside, I'm going to buy some land, I'm going to build a house, I'm going to grow my food. That was the thing. You had eco-villages, which was kind of similar, but I'm going to find lots of other people like me who kind of agree with me, and we're going to set up a place together with all very similar people. And then, and actually, what we were trying to do with transition was to say, okay, there's great learnings in all those places, but what about everybody over here? The realization that I had was, I lived in rural Ireland, I'd built my house, I'd made an amazing food garden, I'd planted orchards and food forests. What would happen if there was a big crisis and the village down the road, the town down the road, had no energy and no food? Am I going to sit at the gate with a gun and protect all of this? Like, no, I'm not going to do that. So actually, what's the point? This stuff needs to be everywhere. And at that time in the permaculture movement, people were actually quite happy being down a little lane, making chairs out of sticks and eating strange berries. And they didn't really want to engage. They wanted to change the world, but didn't really understand the world or really how to engage with it. So transition was like this idea, well, maybe we can build, and also permaculture is notoriously very hard to explain to people. So we thought, well, maybe we could build a kind of a Trojan horse, and you could put permaculture in it, you could put Joanna Macy's work in it, you could put Schumacher College type stuff in it, but you could just wheel it past people and we go, oh yeah, it's transition. And you didn't have to spend hours explaining what all this stuff was. And so that was kind of what the experiment was.
amazing. I like the Trojan horse kind
Yeah.
of metaphor.
Yeah.
I need to check if it's still recording, just because it's otherwise it's
Otherwise, we'll have to do it all again.
too big.